Saturday evening. Let me check that I'm streaming live on YouTube. Nothing yet, but I'll give it a couple of seconds. And yes, we're good to go. So let me just adjust that. So yeah, hello everyone. I see we've got Hariel, Dragon, welcome and thank you all very much for the continued support. Just Janice. Yeah, we've got Conociendo el Islam and Starship. Hello there, Michael Lawler, welcome. Okay guys, yeah, so today's topic is Calvin. Now, I did not expect to be talking about Calvin. It kind of just happened. As you know, I've been working very hard in the background on Luther, but it turns out that Calvin's actually a lot easier to understand and Calvin's actually a lot easier to present. There's a lot more material, whereas with Luther, being that he had nothing to do with the Reformation and has nothing to do with Protestantism, there's a lot of material that seems to be hidden behind academic, hidden behind academic walls, if you want to put it that way, and not translated. Hey, Joel Thomas, welcome, Tom. Catholic Crusader, welcome. Yeah, but Luther seems to be very difficult to unpack because they make it hard to get to the material, whereas Calvin, So this is probably going to be 3 parts. I'll try and do the first part today, and then I'll also do a lot more on Calvin, but I'm not going to go into everything on Calvin. I'm keeping it very specific. Hey there, Time Phaser. Thank you. Damian, yes, welcome. Yeah, also, for some reason I noticed you were chatting on the live stream. Yes, your account was banned. I have no idea who, I have no idea why, but I unbanned it when I saw your comments. Okay, so let's see. Was Calvin a Protestant Gnostic? You know me, and when I present these questions, I mean the answer is yes. Now, this is not to say the man was 100% raging Gnostic. Yes, I think he was a lunatic. I think he was wrong. But this doesn't mean that he conforms to the one true principle of Gnosticism, because Gnosticism took on a multiplicity of forms. For every Gnostic, you would have their own ideas, and their own ideas might contradict themselves tomorrow, as they did with Luther for that matter, and they might change the doctrine next week, and everyone was free to come up with his own ideas because they lack a certain consistency. Yeah, they're consistently in error, but otherwise consistency is something that they lack. All right. Let's talk about John Calvin's letter to Cardinal Sadoleto. And he says, "But here you bring a charge against us." So this is the Catholic Cardinal Sadoleto. "For you teach," well, Hariel says, "I'm not familiar with John Calvin at all." Well, the thing is that John Calvin probably has a greater influence in many ways than even Luther does. Or he's just got just as powerful an influence as Luther, and his influence is less visible. So he needs to be understood. All right, welcome, Andrew Martin. Okay, Michael Lawler, so he cried out to the devil before he died. I'm not familiar with that, did not know. Okay, so he writes to the Catholic Cardinal Sadoleto. "But here you bring a charge against us, for you teach that all which has been approved for 1,500 years or more by the uniform consent of the faithful is, by our headstrong rashness, torn up and destroyed." Because, of course, here you've got an innovation, bidda, right? You have new doctrines arriving after 1,500 years that had not been heard of, that had not been spoken of, perhaps only in small ways by minor people, but this has not been the doctrine of the church and not been the understanding of the church for 1,500 years. I wonder if Calvin also had an obsession with poo. No, he just liked to kill people who disagreed with him. Similar to Luther in one sense, but maybe he did. We'll have to find out what his weirdness was, right? And he goes on, "I will only ask you not to stoop to an illiberal indulgence in calumny," which is basically slander, "which, even though we be silent, must be extremely injurious to your reputation with grave and honest men. You know, Sadolet, and if you venture to deny, I will make it palpable to all that you knew, yet cunningly and craftily disguise the fact, not only that our agreement with antiquity is far closer than yours, but that all we have attempted has been to renew that ancient form of the church. And that's the crux of the historical argument being made by the lawyer, John Calvin. He claims that his doctrine, and by extension Protestant doctrine, the Reformed doctrine, is closer to the truth and is based further back in history than Catholic doctrine. So therefore, it is historically sound, and that all they have tried to do is to recover the original Christian doctrine. Remember, I discussed this in The Great Apostasy, in Conspiracy Christianity, how everyone made that claim. So the Protestant agreement, the Reformed, the Calvinist agreement with Christianity from the early church, from the first century, is greater than that of the Catholic Church, and that all we have attempted has been to renew that ancient form of the church